God, Suge Knight's hilarious,
He
dude.
is.
He don't get credit for being. Suge Knight's funny as
Oh, yeah.
fuck.
I'm going in. No Diddy. I'm going in. No Diddy. I'm thicky thick. So thicky. I'm going in, no Diddy. I'm going in, no Diddy. I'm going in, no Diddy.
All right, welcome to another episode of Fanatically Speaking. I am Kent, the co-host and promoter.
I'm Log Off, the Log Off legend. I am the hater of all social media. I hate social media with every fiber in my being. I am the co-host and producer of the show. This is episode 2
Yep.
on Sean Combs' The Reckoning, just kind of going over that Netflix documentary produced by 50 Cent. And our first episode was interesting. We revealed a lot of things in that documentary that, even though we lived through that area, that we couldn't really remember. We were both younger at the time. There was a lot of things pre-Bad Boy era in regards to, Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, Diddy, whatever you want to name them. But we're going to kind of dive into episode 2. And that episode kind of starts off with, Bad Boy, as a record label kind of taking off. Kent, you want to go and take it from here?
Yeah, so this is where you see, they talked about, Puffy kind of changing his image, right? This is where you see, like, it's not Uptown, it's Bad Boy. So I think Puffy was trying to make it obviously different. He had Biggie, who was a godsend to him as a talent. And like you said, Biggie started off slow because Biggie was different than anything else you were listening to rap-wise in the 90s. So, had that the delivery, all that. But Diddy, Puffy, he was, coming up again. We talked about those beats, something different. And they talk about, Puff trying to be more street than he was. And this goes back to,
Yes.
It wasn't like he was raised from the street. You know what I mean? Like, raised by his mom. We talked about that in the first step. And from that first episode, we did talk about him fighting. But then again, then he was happy-go-lucky Diddy. Now he was trying to, like, this image, because what was popular at the time they talk about was Death Row Records. And that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, and it's funny you said that, Biggie as a talent was a godsend. I think Biggie as a personality was a godsend too.
Yeah.
Because one thing that Biggie had, and it was irrefutable, was street credibility.
Yes.
He was that guy on the street freestyling in Brooklyn. He was that guy on the street that was, if you could look, there's plenty of recordings of Biggie pre-record label just on the street, just rapping, and everybody knew he had bars. And Puff was able to parlay that local New York vibe and celebrity and transition it into Bad Boy and legitimize himself as, hey, look what I got. I went and got that dude from Brooklyn.
Yes.
Listen to him. Isn't he an incredible rapper? You know anybody who can freestyle like it? You know anybody that's got rhymes like that? Coupled it with the beats, like you said, the great, the instrumentation and the good ear that Puff had as a record executive. And so, so it's just funny you said that, like, as a godsend, it was almost too good of a perfect pairing, because it was Puff who had the business side and the promotion side, and Biggie who was somebody who really needed that as an artist because he was unique.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was all working. Once they hit it, once they found what it was. But what Puffy did, and you see in the doc, he kind of copied what Tupac was doing, and that West Coast, right? Copied the I Get Around video and said, okay, how can we make this for Biggie, but in our own way, but basically copy, but in our own way. And then they did that. And
you know what's so funny?
Yeah.
I've seen, oh my gosh, come on, man. Like, I've seen those videos hundreds of times, and I never saw the correlation between the two. until never. Like it was. So again, it was well done. This is where I'm gonna give 50 his credit, man. Like the way they edited it to show, the I get around, dancing at the pool, women all around, and then they show him at Juicy, same thing, similar camera angles, people dancing, vibing, having a good time. It's interesting because as much as I've seen it, I never noticed those connections between the two. And I feel like people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I knew that. Nah, man, you didn't. I lived it and didn't recognize it.
No.
And it was just, I never noticed it as kind of a carbon copy of, hey, we're going to do a New York East Coast version of what's popular in the West Coast. I never made that connection.
No, never, because, again, we were just appreciate all of it. Right, we appreciated.
It was a dope song.
We just said,
I get around. It's a classic.
That's right, and then it's the Juicy, the video and the song. It's like,
Juicy is a classic.
Yeah, you're not even thinking about, oh, that's like Pac but different. No, you're just like, man, this Biggie's it. Like in his short time, he was the man. He was obviously become the GOAT, if not one of the GOATs, right? So yeah, I really took that from that first part of as they talked about him again trying to be more street, and it's funny, like you said, Biggie was from the street, and then here Puffy is trying to be that way a little more, and then taking and biting from the West Coast to bring it to the East Coast.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and and then unfortunately, as anyone who knows what takes place in the streets, and whether it's gangs, whether it's drugs. It leads to, in a lot of instances, violence, which was the things that kind of led in the next segment, where they were talking about just kind of how, there were some gang affiliations, beefs between crews. How did you want to dive into that part?
Yeah, so I think the biggest part of this was the Tupac versus Puffy, right? Because they talk about Pac was happy for Big, right? They were friends. He was happy that he was getting his,
very happy.
Right? Pac had already kind of blown up, but he was very happy for Biggie. And then him and Puff just quite couldn't get along. And it was, it was mentioned in the doc that maybe Puff was jealous of Tupac and their relationship, Pac and Biggie, because, there you go again. Puff discovered Biggie, so he's thinking, "Oh, well, me and him, we're together, as a partnership, as a team." And then you got this guy from the West Coast, who is, he's friends with Biggie, and we don't want that, even though I'm gonna, take and bite off of him. So it was kind of again that power trip Puffy was going through, and then that, of course, like you said, led up to some violence that involved Tupac.
Yes, yeah, and the interesting thing is they had footage of Tupac and Biggie sitting at a table, freestyle.
That was amazing.
Having drinks, dapping each other up.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it just took you back, and it's like, well, like before everything ended poorly, like these were people who had a mutual respect for each other, and what I loved about it was it showed that they had a connection as I mean, obviously you could look up, Tupac's upbringing, but, Tupac's mother was, affiliated with the Black Panther movement. Like, so you're talking about somebody who was in the streets, and then you're talking about Biggie selling drugs on the streets in New York. And they had that type of connection where even though they were from different sides of the track, and Tupac, representing, even though in Tupac, a lot of people don't even understand this. Like Tupac was somebody who spent a lot of time in New York as a young man. And even though, this whole West Coast thing was something that, he embraced because that's where he currently lived, they had a mutual respect for one another as artists, and they wanted to do business together as artists. And as the documentary implies, that was something where Puff wanted to maintain control of that for a lot of other reasons, as we know, when it comes to just kind of record executives as a whole. And, so that kind of goes into, like you said, like the violence and the shootings and all of that. And I think it all kind of culminated with, Tupac. What a lot of people don't understand is the first shooting that Tupac was involved in, where he ended up getting shot in New York, was him coming to the studio to record with Pup and Big in the same building. And I can outline that if you want me to. You want me just to kind of drag through that?
Yeah, go for it.
So Tupac he's actually narrating this in a portion of the documentary where he's like, yeah, I'm getting blown up. They're paging me saying, hey man, where are you? And he's like, yeah, we stopped and got some weed, and now we're on our way to the studio. And so he shows up at the studio, and as he's getting out of the car, Little C's, in a lot of people's eyes, Biggie's, right hand man, is on the rooftop and sees Tupac pull up and shouts out like, hey, Tupac, hey, man, come on. He's like, hey, man, why don't y'all come down here and let me in? And as Lil C says, he goes down to get him, and as he comes off the elevator, two guys point guns at him. They push him back into the elevator. He gets back into the elevator, and then Tupac ends up getting shot, while with Puff and Biggie in the building. So no matter how you spin it, it happened on their watch. Tupac starts to question it in hindsight to the point where even when he's in the hospital, he actually checks himself out of the hospital against the doctor's request because he just wants to get out of New York, So obviously that's a big thing. Strong footage on that. They show the footage of him in the wheelchair leaving the hospital, camera crews and everybody, reporters all surrounding him. What were your thoughts about that portion of it?
Yeah, this is one of those. It's kind of like anytime someone's shot, assassinated, right? It's that conspiracy theory. It's that let's break down what happened and what really happened, right? So when you hear, like said, Lil C literally saying, hey, yeah, I got off the elevator, these two guys, guns at them. They didn't shoot him. They said, no, go, get back, go back. So they weren't there for him. And he is associated with Puffy and Biggie. And then Pac gets shot.
Yes.
And as Tupac pointed out, like, who just shoots somebody but don't rob them? Like, they didn't take my Rolex.
Well, no, and that's the thing. Well, that's the thing. And apparently, things like he was shot. They've been calling it a robbery. My whole life they've been calling it a robbery.
They didn't rob him.
And then Tupac is like, well, how do you rob me, but you don't steal my $80,000 Rolexes?
Yes.
Like,
yeah, he's like, I ain't never heard nobody getting robbed, getting shot and robbed, but they don't. Yeah. So those are those questionable parts of the story that makes you then think, oh, well, that's kind of suspicious.
Yeah, very suspicious, and also, like you said, targeted, because whoever these gentlemen were, they had access to the building to be able to catch Lil C's coming off the elevator to tell him to get back in. They were waiting for Tupac to arrive, so somehow they had some knowledge that he was going to show up, and then they end up, shooting him and hitting their target. And, luckily Tupac didn't die in that particular, attempt. But yeah, I mean, it calls everything into question. And, as the story, continues, there's just more instances of, hey, this is associated with Bad Boy and there's violence. And the only person who seems to have clean hands every single time is Puffy. So, it just kind of throws those types of, nuanced types of perspectives out there. And that actually moves on. But yeah, I mean, we can kind of move on to the next portion if you want to.
Yeah. And what I've got is Bad Boy starts blowing up more, right? They got Biggie, then they get Faith Evans, they got Craig Mack, Total. He's kind of built, this kind of a group, a roster, right? Yeah, he's got of talent that he found.
Yes, yeah, talent that he found, and talent that is developed well, and and it all. And the one thing I think that was really unique about Bad Boy as a homogenized hip hop production organization was that all the artists really fit really well with what other artists were doing on that same label, but they were still different. Craig Mack was not Biggie, but their music always meshed well. Mary J. Blige, you could throw her on anything. Total, I think it was the Can't You See song with Total, where it's like, okay, we're gonna have that slow beat and we're gonna have Biggie just start off the track, rip it. Like, it just, everything always had a really nice blend where like I said, like as a roster, they fit really well. Like we can say what we want to about, and I know a lot of this is going to talk on, fit into Death Row and, obviously Dr. Dre, Snoop, Tupac, their music had a West Coast sound, but the way that Bad Boy's music all seemed to blend together very well and kind of complement one another was something that was unique to me. Just kind of looking at it, big picture, bird's eye view back then in the 90s. Like listening to it now, it makes more sense to me than it did then. But that was something where I think it was strategic, where it's like, no, I want to make this to where I can use all of these artists to benefit the label as a whole and develop our own kind of sound, even if we are mimicking what other people are doing.
Oh yeah, like I said, they definitely had their own sound. We talk about that with the beats, the way he did it, the way he produced the music, and you're exactly right. Like everything just kind of blended and worked well together. And again, credit to Puff. Like I said, he did have an eye for talent and a knack for coming up with these. Like they said, he wasn't talking about, oh, your pitch, your high. He ain't telling people that. He was talking about more, putting it together, beats, finding that beat, and getting the right people in place to make it work.
Yes, yeah, and he was great at it, man. Again, great music, timeless classics, man. It's just I'll never be able to take that from him. He was always a part of that. Yeah. So where do you want to go next on that? Just kind of roll to the next part?
So what I got is, Puffy started being a little, again, growing into this top guy at Bad Boy and changing that attitude where talent is saying they're not getting paid, right? Craig Mack, they talk about Craig Mack and his wife. They're talking about, he's got this big hit, but not getting the money. And then Diddy, and I'm going to go a couple places here, was not only that, then they talk about, threatening the Kirk Burroughs to get his 25% stock back, which at the time he had
within Bad Boy, the 25% stock that he had in Bad
Boy, right? So he had 25 and Puff's mom had the other 75, right? All because leading back to that basketball game, right? So now, though, that had kind of cleared Puffy's bigger, more popular, obviously, with Biggie and Bad Boy. So now he wanted that money. So claimed he was going to give it back to him, but at the moment, went in there with a baseball bat and kind of was like, yeah, I'm going to need that back. All the while, again, not paying talent and making money off of them, even though they're the stars, but he was kind of wanting to be the star.
Yes, and that's actually something else that was highlighted within the documentary as well, where he would turn the contracts into, you're going to have to chase me for this money. Because like you alluded to Craig Mack and, I believe it was his ex-wife who was in the documentary, who said that, it's like what he would do is he would sign people to their advance, get them their cash up front, and then just nickel and dime you for everything that takes place. Oh, if Puff is in your video, you're going to have to pay me for that. For these recording sessions, you're going to have to pay me for this. For all this PR that we're doing for you, you owe me for this. And that was how the contracts were structured, to where no matter what took place, it was pretty much a sunken ship. There was going to be no way for you to generate enough money for all the things that you were doing, because in order for you to make your next record under that label, you're going to have to pay for studio sessions, which were costing hundreds of thousands of dollars per session. Why? Because Puff is in there as a producer to help you make a hit, and the only way for you to continue to make the hits is to continue to use Bad Boy, because that's who you're signed to, contractually obligated. And I believe Craig, his ex-wife, Craig Max, where she says, how they were flat broke and they would have to go to their parents to get money just to pay their bills. And it's like, well, this guy's got one of the hit records on the planet. Like he's number 3 on the Billboard charts. How is it that you don't have any money? So when you talk about like the 25% going in with the baseball bat, trying to get him to, to sign it over to these tight contracts, that was a shift where it's like, okay, not only is this guy trying to, increase his own bravado and make a name for himself, he's doing it at the expense of these people that he says he loves and cares about, which were his artists, which takes me back to that first episode.
Okay.
When it's described where Andre Harrell gives him his very first talent assignment with Jodeci, and he tells him, these artists aren't important, dude. You are important. You are the A&R. You are the executive. You work for the production house. The artists aren't important. They're going to come and go. We are the ones who are putting all this stuff together. And I think when he created Bad Boy, that was how he made those contracts so tight to where it was tough for them to not only make money that wasn't leaving the production studio, but it also made it difficult for them to leave because he had them by the balls, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah. And I wanted to hit on that. Like you said, he was in the video, he got paid. They recorded in his studio, he got paid. He did a speaking part on at the beginning, he got paid. So he was, like I said, he was getting paid any way possible from these guys, from his talent, and like you said, the contracts. But it brought an idea up, or it brought something up to my mind that I've thought about before, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this. Can you name a Bad Boy talent that lasted a long time? Because there's
hilarious. I actually no go ahead.
Because to me, I always thought like, oh yeah, they were on Bad Boy, and then it's like, but they weren't on there long, or they only had one album, or maybe two albums, right? But the only constant, the only thing that stayed was Diddy, right? He was still on there out. He was still, everybody that put out something, he was there. But you would never see like a longevity of a career all at Bad Boy, right? I'm looking and it's like, yeah, 112 had a pretty I think they may be the best run ever at Bad Boy.
Agreed. Yeah, and that's the other thing. And they were a group. They had some longevity, but it's funny you said that because as it happened, I stopped the documentary and I had a similar epiphany in the middle of it, where I turned to the house and I asked my wife. I said, "Hey, do you think that there's one Bad Boy artist that you can name that's still alive that has a good thing to say about Bad Boy?" Like, just think about it. Like, if you think about who's there, like, because like there's people that sign to labels that credit those labels for launching their career. I don't know what's going on with 112 in total. I mean, but I've seen so many crash and burn. I mean, Jadakiss crashed and burned with Bad Boy. Styles P, Danny Kane, if you want to go that far, that far along.
Carl Thomas, Black Rob,
Carl Thomas,
Mario Winans.
Yeah, Mace. It poorly
Dream,
with Mace.
Mace.
Yeah.
Mace had to go on his own.
Lil' Kim.
Yeah.
But if you were to pull them aside, it's like you've never heard any of them speak glowingly about Bad Boy as a record label.
Nope.
It's just it was so. I mean, and then obviously, I mean, the best. I mean, Cassie. Come on, like it all ended poorly, and I think that's kind of the elephant in the room was, and it was actually alluded to in this episode where it's like we treated our artists bad.
Yeah, and
that's where it kind of led into the next part, and I know we're gonna touch into it. I'll get out of your way here in a second. Go for it. Where with the Biggie and Tupac thing, where it was like, I think Puff may have been afraid that Biggie's relationship with Tupac would be like, dude, like there's a better way for you to do it. You partner with that guy, and you can give him a lot of credit for your success, but you are the talent. You're one of the best MCs walking the globe. You can do better than that. And here's what's taking place at Death Row. When you got Snoop, Dr. Dre, and Tupac all on one label, and you are Biggie, yes, you're the guy, and we know that how great you are. I think that he was afraid that maybe some of that would have gotten out, and Biggie starts looking like, yeah, you know what, man, I think I can do better. So, and especially to know that, and as I mentioned too in this documentary, that Biggie had another contract coming. We'll get to that in the closing of this episode. Yeah. So, but But I thought about that too. Like there's no one who's gonna say great things about Bad Boy as a record label, and I think it's telling, even with those that are still alive today.
Yeah, and I don't. Again, even with like everything Diddy's going through now, I don't think I heard anybody come out and defend him. So, not only Bad Boy, but
Ever.
yeah, and
No.
yeah. So yeah, I mean it's kind of weird, but it's kind of telling as well. And like you said, yeah, at the time, Death Row then was getting going with Suge Knight, and like you said, Dr. Dre, Snoop, and Pac, and Suge was on the other end speaking about how his talent and his roster, they're gonna make money. Like he's gonna look out for his guys. Where on the other side, like I said, it didn't seem like Diddy was doing the same, and that definitely probably was part of it. But at the same time, Puff, like we talked about, trying to be from the streets, trying to put this different image out there. Again, he started kind of imitating Death Row, that harder core rap, trying to shift into that spectrum a little bit.
Yes. No, absolutely, man. Yeah. If you want to go ahead and roll into, I got something else that I saw next.
Okay.
But I'll let you go ahead and continue.
Okay.
You're doing a good job, man. You narrating, man.
Oh, it's fine.
You good.
So then what I have next is, this was the start of the East Coast, West Coast rivalry, right? If you want to call it that.
Yes.
But they do mention in the documentary, I think it was Eric Sermon, it really wasn't East Coast, West Coast. He's these guys, these rappers, they were going back and forth all the time. It was really Bad Boy against Death Row. It was really the Suge Knight versus Puffy, right? So they had their moments at the awards, all that fun stuff. Suge taking his shot, things like that. And then that led to another violent event, right? Where I believe they were, and again, I may be skipping around a little bit on the events, but I know that they were coming out of a party, right? I think it was Puffy's party, and Suge and his friend attended. And then when they're leaving, they're all outside, and a guy walks up with a gun, looking at Suge Knight, meanwhile shooting his friend, ultimately dead.
Yes.
And Suge grabs Diddy, Puffy grabs him to kind of shield himself because he's like, well, they ain't shooting me. They're going to have to shoot him if this is a setup. And the whole time Diddy telling him, it's going to be okay. Your mom's going to be okay. Your family's going to be okay. It was a kind of like I don't know, man. It's like a mafia, like a mob type deal, right?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is like that's what, like Suge's reaction was like, if you're gonna shoot, like no, you're gonna shoot this guy.
Yeah.
Like you're coming to shoot me, and Suge's reaction was like, no, don't tell me it's gonna be okay, you tell your mama that, tell your family that, like it's it was one of those moments where, and it's such a strange thing, man. This is probably only the real heavily documented instances of violence in hip hop. Like we know that it's happened historically, but it's so well documented. There's so many accounts, and I hate looking at it through the nostalgic type lens, but it was so like it's so weird to just watch Suge Knight calmly explain what happened. Same thing with Tupac. It's like Tupac got shot up outside of a studio, and to listen to him calmly just go through, like you said, the steps in the process of everything that happened. It's very interesting. And again, another violent instance in which Puff just happens to be present and nothing happens to him.
Comes out clean. You
know what I mean? Like it's he comes out clean, and it's just these things just keep following him. It's very, very interesting, man. It's and again, a lot of this stuff I knew, these connection points I never really put together, but I mean that is the purpose of a documentary, to kind of put things together and tell a bigger story.
Yeah. And I think then this led to the awards, right? The Source Awards.
Yeah, it did. And, there was actually some things that there were actually some things that kind of happened before.
Okay.
But yeah, we can go to the
It
source
doesn't matter.
words. No, go.
Either
We're
way.
good. Let's go to
Either
source
way,
words.
what you got? What's next?
Go source awards. You're good.
Yeah, so we get to the source awards, and this again, everything is kind of a back and forth with Death Row, Bad Boy, Puffy, Suge. And you get to the source awards, and Suge gets out there, and he's basically, like we mentioned earlier about Biggie and the artist and the, what record labels doing what. And he's basically inviting everybody that, if you want to come and be a star and make money, come to Death Row. And not be like, and he didn't name Puffy, but, talked about dancing in the videos, rap, getting, being involved. He's like, yeah, you ain't going to get that here. So it was like a public invitation for anybody and basically Biggie to, hey, come over to our side. That's the way I took it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, and at that time, he was... Suge Knight was in the process of developing Death Row East Coast record label, and he wanted to make it, one of those things where it's like, okay, well, obviously you're going to need talent, and that's what, Suge Knight, to his credit, that's another thing he was great at finding. He was great at finding talent, some indie artists that he could bring on, and Biggie, I think it was kind of well known that Biggie's contract was almost up. Obviously, he could have renewed with Bad Boy, but it's like, hey, if we got an opportunity to get one of these guys, I mean, that would be a hell of a roster to have, Dr. Dre, Snoop, Tupac, and Biggie all on one label is absurd. And there was the back and forth, and it's like, and then they showed Puff, at the Source Awards saying, listen, like, I'm here, I want peace. No more of this East Coast, West Coast stuff. I'm very proud of those brothers on the West Coast, so everybody give it up to everybody, whether you East Coast or West Coast, we're all just trying to, make good music and, and we all want everybody to be successful. And then more violence comes after he says that publicly at the Source Awards. Suge took a shot at him. Puff tries to kind of quiet things down, but more things keep happening.
Yeah, which I think that led to what we were mentioning earlier with the shooting of Suge's friend. And then I've got, we're talking about, then we get the involvement with the Crips. We get to talk about how the Crips are friends with Puffy and Bad Boy, and they have this relationship.
Yes, and a lot of that was covered in the documentary was, I don't want to say unverified, but it was heavily speculative. The individuals that they had in the documentary that spoke about it at length, they kind of said it as a form of it being matter of fact.
Yeah.
I don't know how much validity you want to give it, but at the same time, it was something that as I'm listening to it, it seemed as if, he had these relationships with these street guys, Puffy, excuse me. Puff had relationships with street guys in Harlem who had relationships with guys that may or may not have known who his father was. And, kind of, okay, yeah, well, this was, his dad was this hustler gangster guy. I'm going to use my connections to help look after him. And, and then it's like, okay, well, is he using gangs for protection? And, it all kind of circled back to him trying to solidify himself as legitimate businessman, in public, but tough guy, hustle, street guy, within these private rooms. I don't know if anybody really bought it like that, but the gang connections were certainly interesting.
Yeah, and they kind of mentioned, like I said, without saying that they were protecting them. It was just like, well, we're friends with him, and if somebody comes at him, then we're going to help him. You know what I mean? It was kind of that.
Yes.
And, of course, this all led to a conversation of allegedly Puff having with the Crips about killing Tupac and Suge Knight. And they're apparently an agreement of $1 million.
$1 million, for the killing of Tupac and Suge. I don't know if you just want to jump straight to that, in Vegas. You want to go ahead and take it there?
Yeah, basically, like I said, they had this conversation where it wasn't it didn't sound like it was an outright, hey guys, I'll pay you to kill Tupac and Suge, right? It was a Puffy saying it out loud, I'd pay to have these guys killed, right? And then that led to that conversation. And this all came from Keefe D talking to the police. So the two guys involved, Keefe D and Orlando Anderson, they were the two that I guess were going to do this. And this all led to the Tyson fight in Vegas where Suge was there, Pac was there at Death Row, and then something happened at a party. Is that right? Concert? The chain, one of the Death Row chains got stolen or was tried to get stolen, right?
Yes. Yeah. He was affiliated. Yeah, he got beat up and his chain stolen.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so Pac recognized that man as Orlando Anderson in the lobby of the MGM? Was that where the fight was?
Yeah, MGM Grand.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and of course they immediately took after him and beat him down, and then of course that led to some phone calls and some interaction that led to ultimately the shooting into the car of Tupac and Suge.
Yeah, Tupac and Suge, and the bullet grazed Suge Knight's head, and that's where the story takes the turn where it's like, yep, it was supposed to be $1 million, but because Tupac was the only one that ended up dying, it was only a $500,000 payment that was made. And again, all gang, street affiliations. The money is deposited, given to one person who's supposed to distribute it to another person. Keefe, he says that he never received the money, and and a lot of these figures, are no longer here. So it's I don't want to say you take it with a grain of salt. Their stories sound legitimate, and the pieces do seem as if they fit, but it's a very interesting connection piece that, for them to say that, yeah, like the shooting took place and they break down, well, yeah, like we saw them, they were on Las Vegas Boulevard and the cops stopped, the car that Suge Knight's driving, because the music is too loud. And it's ingrained in my head, man. It's one of those things, I'm not going to lie, like I've actually had dreams about it. That image of Tupac turning and looking at that camera sitting in that BMW, man. It's crazy. I don't know, like watching someone's final moments and he's just got this blank look on his face. He doesn't look scared. He doesn't look shocked. He got no fear. It's just kind of just a blank look. And for that to be the final image of him moments before he loses his life it's one of those things that, yeah, like I said, it's literally etched in my brain. Like as I'm saying it, like I can see it right now. And before we move on from the Tupac thing, the one thing that I want to say is I don't think ever in our lives that we will ever see a celebrity with the track record of one Tupac Shakur. When you look at what his musical career was, what his acting career was, and all the things that young man accomplished, and I mean, we didn't even get into the fact that he ended up going to prison for like rape charges,
right? Yeah.
Like all of these things took place, but all of it happened, and he accomplished so much, and it happened to the point where he died at the age of 25. He did all of this and died at 25.
Yeah.
It's still jarring to me, man. Like, listen, look up his filmography. Look at all the movies that he was in, all of the records that he produced. And he still ended up going to jail in the middle of all of that. And he was still able to accomplish all these things. It's just, it's incredible. He had an incredible life. It's sad to see it in that way, especially over some BS that seemed to be fabricated with gas kind of poured onto the fire, insinuated that it was done by Diddy. But it's just interesting to. I just wanted to say that, man. When you look at that dude's resume, the fact that he died at 25 years old only, you think that was a career of a 30-something-year-old man. It's incredible.
Yeah, and again, earlier I was just mentioning Biggie, what he accomplished in a short bit of time just in music. But yeah, I mean, Pac was music and everything, and movies and this
and films, major
classics,
box office, leading man, classic movies.
Yep,
unbelievable.
Yeah. So, but again, this is a documentary about Puff Daddy, Diddy, and this situation, this event, the killing of Tupac, again, centered around him, centered around Diddy, where, like you said, he paid the guy named Zip. Zip was supposed to pay Keefe D and Orlando Anderson, and later on, Zip and Orlando Anderson die. Zip, I think, he had cancer. Anderson gets killed. And then, of course, there allegedly was some conversations of Diddy, them letting him know that Pac had been killed. And then you also have, I go back to Kirk Burroughs, that Puffy had him rent cars to go to Vegas during this same time period and wanted multiple drivers. So, again, this is all, their story telling this. There's no proof of any of this. But, again, Diddy, another event, like you said, Diddy comes out clean and having the upper hand in the so-called East Coast, West Coast battle.
Yes, yeah, East Coast, West Coast battle. And then it kind of, Tupac gets killed, and then it rolls into we're going to shift this back to Biggie. Now we got to get Biggie going. We got to go ahead and get this next album out. And then it goes into just kind of the focus and promotion on Puff trying to promote Biggie as heavily as he can. And he wants him to go to L.A., I believe it was an award show in L.A. I think it was an award show to kind of help promote, to kind of promote the album, and and then in the episode it was kind of defined that, hey, that Puff would repeat that Biggie wanted to be in L.A., but behind the scenes you've got people saying like, no, like Biggie wanted to come back home, like Biggie wanted to leave, and it was actually I believe they said he had a trip to go overseas to, I think it was London,
UK. Mm-hmm.
Go to the UK and, to promote the album there, to be the first Bad Boy artist to promote, an album internationally, which I don't know what the cultural impacts are of Bad Boy internationally. So I can only imagine how big that could have been as an opportunity in the 90s. That
would have been huge. Yeah.
It would have been massive. But, as the story tells that, Puff wanted Biggie to stay, in LA. And then, obviously, tragedy unfolds there, but, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, so, and like you said, Biggie, they went out to L.A., they did the awards, whatever else to promote. Biggie was supposed to get on a flight that Saturday morning to UK, and unbeknownst to him and Kirk Burroughs, Diddy canceled the flight. He said, nah, he's staying in L.A. We got, we're going to go to this, what was it, a party? Something they were,
Yes. Yeah. Diddy wanted to have a party
in L.A.
In L.A. Yeah, and that's a whole East Coast, West Coast thing. It's like, oh, hey, and then there's, the rumblings from the alleged gang affiliations where they're saying, hey, man, like, you just can't be walking around L.A. like this. Like, there's people that want your head. Before to that, the preface was them at the award show being booed by the crowd. The crowd wasn't even happy to see them there. But yet there they are still standing on stage, and then so they have the party. The party takes place, and unfortunately, as Biggie is leaving, the SUV convoy gets shot up, and Biggie passes away as a result. There was some unseen footage I'd never seen of live outside the venue, where gunshots go off, the camera kind of pans away, and then there's they play audio of the actual 911 calls of them trying to drive Biggie to the hospital, not even waiting for an ambulance.
No, I never heard that, never seen that footage before. And it goes back to, like you said, not only was Biggie not wanting to be out there, I don't know that he really wanted that rivalry with Pac. You know, like I said, it was more about Pac and Puffy, Diddy, and again, Biggie gets killed, and who comes out clean? Diddy.
And not only does he come out clean, and it's sad because I never really looked at it this way. And again, this is what documentaries do. They frame a perspective and then put it in front of you to watch. It was a little cringy to watch Puff talk about Biggie in such a way right after he got killed, but use it as the fuel and the vessel to not only launch his own album, but to launch Biggie's album. And then that goes into just kind of some of the contractual things that were mentioned in the documentary as well. It was kind of eerie to watch, looking at it in hindsight, where, you know, there's magazine covers and, you know, all these things where you could kind of use it as an opportunity to memorialize, you know, one of your artists who you said was one of your good friends that got assassinated and shot up in a car at a party that you just happened to be hosting. Mm-hmm. Ding, ding, ding. You know, it's just, it's unfortunate that that he used it kind of as a launching pad for his own career, because even after that took Bad Boy to another level.
Yeah, and I do remember at the time, you know, it's one of those things, like somebody gets killed, who benefits off the murder? Who benefits off that? And like we said, Puffy, he benefited the most. And there was rumblings. I remember rumblings. They would say, well, Diddy had something to do with it. And we don't know, you know, I don't think they really got into that. It was just kind of more like he's kind of to blame because he made him stay in L.A., where if he would have just took that flight, if he'd have just stayed on the East Coast, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Maybe it would have. Never know, right? It was kind of still, it was a very heated time. So, but yeah, Puffy, he benefited the most. Again, it goes into, like you said, he was launching that solo album, and then that's basically what he cared about. And I know we're going to get into this. So it was then these revelation. God, man, I can't even fucking talk. Revelations of, so these revelations about Biggie's, one, Puff not wanting to communicate with the police or help them in the murder of Biggie because it might link him back to Pac's murder. That was the insinuation.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So here he doesn't want to help, which, again, Suge didn't want to help either because he's like, you know, snitches get stitches.
You beat me to it. That's exactly where I was going to say.
Yeah, so you get that, right? These guys who are from the street, they're not going to snitch. They're just going to take care of themselves. And that was Suge's take, where Puff is more like, well, I don't want them to start connecting dots. That's how it was put, like, don't connect dots because it may lead back to Pac because, you know, Pac had just got murdered. So, and obviously the connection. But then it gets into back to Puff cheating artists with contracts and money, right? And they talk about how he wanted to throw the biggest funeral ever, but have Biggie's estate pay for it. And then told them, remove Biggie. Biggie was, obviously, like I said, his album coming out. They had a Rolling Stone cover, and Puff's like, nah, put me on the cover about my album. And then the contract he changed after Biggie's death, the one he had just signed before his death. So it would be less money to Biggie's estate. The dude we keep talking about is guy, Kirk Burroughs. He didn't want to change it, wouldn't change it. And after 90 days, he was fired for not doing what Puff wanted with Biggie's contract.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, and like I said, and it's just the document, that episode kind of rolled downhill really fast when it came to that. And it's I'm going to introduce something that's a little sideways. It's going to sound like I'm going off the rails, but just follow me a little bit. There's a character that I've always, and a character, I mean like an actual human being that lived by the name of Meyer Lansky. He was one of the former mob guys And when I say mob, I mean like Al Capone, Bugsy Siegel, mob guys. And why I always been intrigued by Meyer Lansky is because he's the only mob guy out of all of them that survived and lived a long life. And Meyer Lansky's, I guess his moniker was, as long as you pay someone their percentage, you'll never have any enemies. So he would go into different territories, sell drugs, sell illegal liquor, gambling operations. And when he moved into someone else's territory, he's like, hey, I don't want any trouble. I'm just going to pay you your cut. And there's an admiration that came from that because he wasn't one of these tough guys that was going to fight you on the street or shoot at you and have you killed. He's like, I don't want drama. Just let me pay you what I owe you so I can continue to do my business. And I wish that was something that Puff had. I wish that was something that Puff had in his repertoire where he understood that if you treat people with the respect that they require, you're not going to have this issues. I can't imagine what it was like, man. You talked about Biggie. They played that video in the documentary of Biggie saying how he's waking up in the middle of the night paranoid. Yeah. It's like, man, I got people trying to kill me. Like, he's like, I can't even sleep at night. But didn't matter to Puff. He's still putting him on airplanes, sending him out there into literal enemy territory, getting this guy booed on stage. And then even in his death, has the allegations that he's changed the contracts so that way, even after he's dead, his family, his mother, and his children, they don't even get the money that was rightfully owed to him. To do something like that takes a special kind of piece of shit.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean Meyer Lansky, the mob guy that I'm referencing, literally lived to be 81 years old and died on a beach in Miami, Florida of natural. I actually think he died of like lung cancer, but he lived a long life. And the guy was born, I want to say in the early 1900s. He was born in 1902.
Okay.
But he paid everybody the way, he's like, I'm just going to give you your piece so that I can continue to do what it is that I need to do. Bad Boy could have been a great record label, and Puff could have had a situation where everybody was eating. He didn't have to be greedy. So it's just unfortunate to hear, man. It's like, it's sad that stuff like that's actually coming to the surface, in 2025.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that. What we learned from the documentary about Puff, I mean, you hear stuff now about artists, and in the music industry, you got that a lot. You've seen stories of, TLC going bankrupt, artists going bankrupt because the label is making the money, and that makes, they're not making money off the music. The artists don't. They have to go on tour, and then you make money off concerts and things like that. So Diddy had a nice little business plan to again, like I said, push stars for a little bit and keep coming up with another star, which to his credit, they kept coming to him. And again, if you want to be famous, I guess this guy says, hey, I'm going to make you famous. They make you famous, but then you put out an album and then you're on to the next one. And that's what I mean. I felt like that with Bad Boy. But everybody, you're blind to that entertainment because you're like, well, he's Puff Daddy. He's Diddy, right? He's, on camera, he's fun-loving. He's this, that, and the other. He puts out good music, good beats. He does his own thing. But again, you see that pattern, though. And I'm not insinuating that he did anything with Biggie. I'm just saying that he wanted the limelight. So Biggie died, and then he's like, here we go. My solo album, my cover, me. And again, it did. I mean, it put him on a rocket ship to the top because, again, they talk about that image at the MTV Awards of him out there with Sting and Faith Evans. And, they come up with this, I'll be missing you after Biggie's death. And it made, again, what does it make it look? One, it makes Diddy the guy. He gets the sympathy from Biggie's death because it's like, oh, that's Puff's friend. He made this song about Biggie. Again, rocket ship to the top. And Bad Boy was up there as well. But again, I just took from the first two episodes in general, in total, if we're recapping the second one as well, it's not only is he trying to take people's women, we got that theme, or their ex-wife or their side chick. He just wanted to say, yeah, I got with your this, I got with this. His ego was so big, wanting to be the star, wanting to be the light. And again, I don't think it mattered who he used and what he sponged off of to elevate himself. It was a consistent theme in these first 2 episodes to this point. Unfortunately, like you said, elevated himself off of Biggie's death.
Correct. And I couldn't have said that better myself. The only thing that I'm going to add is when it came to his label, and you talked about, just kind of, the transfer of the last 25%, so that the LLC that he had full ownership of it. I think what happened was, and this is just my opinion, that Bad Boy itself, when you thought about it, back then, you thought about Biggie. Biggie was the face of Bad Boy.
Yeah.
After his death, it became Puff. It was all Puff. And now when you look at it, I mean, it's hard to think of, like you say, even when you think about the artists that we mentioned before, the 112s and, even, some of the more recent ones, the Danny Kane,
Machine Gun Kelly,
Carl Thomas, and MGK. Like, when you think about all of that, it's like, but when you hear Bad Boy, you don't even, you think Puff. You think Puff Daddy.
I think remixes.
You think Diddy. Remixes too. And again, that's something else he was very, very good at. Like, it was it was one of those things that it's unfortunate that he had to use other people and use their talents because he didn't have much himself. That's fine. I never thought, he was a great rapper. But at the same time, go ahead.
I was just saying, they clowned him in the episode about his rap.
Yeah, I mean, because listen, some people got it. I'm not a great rapper. Like, I can't make music. I know what sounds great. I got a good eye for what I think sounds good, but I don't know. And to his credit, he was able to build an empire, man. Bad Boy was an empire, a music empire. That catalog is unreal, but he had to do it by stepping on others. And I mean, that's the part that sucks. And, when it's all said and done, I mean, it resulted in the way that it did for a reason. And I think one of the main reasons for that was because he didn't take care of the people like he should have.
Yeah. No, he was, like you said, not a great rapper. He's an entertainer. I would put him in that category.
A personality.
He's a personality. Yeah. He made music. He rapped, sang, whatever you want to call it. And, but like you said, he used others. And there's many people in life that you talk about, the first person that came to my mind when we talk about like using others, and you got to be a certain way to get to the top of some industries. And it's like Vince McMahon. But yeah, Diddy, like you said, he did what he did, and not exactly the greatest way to do business, but it worked out for him. And like you said, when you think about Bad Boy, you think about Diddy, and I can't wait to watch the rest of the episodes.
Definitely going to episodes 3 and 4. I'm excited myself. I'll probably try to watch them here in the next day or so. And and then we'll record episodes 3 and 4 and put those out for the public to listen to. You want me to go ahead and close things out?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thanks again, everybody, for listening to another episode of Fanatically Speaking. Again, a little different. I know this was episode 2 of the Sean Combs The Reckoning documentary, but just mixing it up is something that's topical. Both Kent and myself found it very interesting. And so we hope you found, just kind of these recaps the same. I am Log Off, the Log Off legend, the hater of all things social media, co-host and producer of the show.
Yeah, go watch the documentary and then keep listening to us and follow us on social media everywhere, Facebook, IG, TikTok. We're on YouTube. Listen to us on all podcast outlets.
Yes. Yeah. Share, like, review, subscribe, comment, send in questions, ask whatever you want. Send it our way, and we'll make sure to take a look at it. And that is all I got.
It's a wrap. No Diddy.
All right, I'm gonna go get some food.
All right, I must.
No Diddy.